Greetings and welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. I am W.D. Foster Graham, and I am the book review editor for Inside News, and I will be your host on this Book Chat Thursday. The conversation with Al McFarlane covers all aspects of the African and African American diaspora. And on the program, we offer stimulating, robust, lively, enlightening, and inspiring conversations. We are shooting for 2,000 subscribers in 2026. So if you are enjoying our content, please do like and subscribe and share with your network. Our guest today is someone that I had the great honor of meeting during December's Minnesota Black Authors event at the Minneapolis Central Library. She is an award-winning spoken word poet and educator. She's an audio book author of Before I Lie, a Compass teaching artist and a recipient of the Loft Library Center Teaching Artist Fellowship, the Minnesota State Arts Board Artist Grant, and Springboard for the Arts Weathering Together Grant. She has performed for the NAACP, the Minnesota State Capitol, Button Poetry, Mill City Museum, True Art Speaks, the Minnesota Black Business Ball, and the Minnesota Black Authors Expo. Her work weaves rhythm, intimacy, and vulnerability to create spaces of healing, shaped by her background as a social worker. She is the co-editor of Rewilding Hope and The Nation's Underground, Writing with Our Ancestors. And she coordinates literary programming at Friends of the St. Paul Public Library, including Club Book, Moving Words, and the Fireside Reading Series. She is also the founder of Larkins Consulting LLC and the visionary behind the Minnesota Black Literary Gala, a forthcoming statewide initiative honoring Black authors, elders, and intergenerational storytelling. So it is indeed my good pleasure to bring to you for today's conversation with Al McFarlane, Ms. Dralandra Larkins.
Hi, WD. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Dralandra, it is good to have you here on the show. And I remember what it's like to meet you and also see you as a performing artist sharing your work. So tell our viewers some things about yourself, how you grew up. I understand, yes, you grew up in Chicago.
Yeah. So actually, initially, my family is from Chicago. I'm not from Chicago. I grew up here in South Minneapolis.
Ah,
Yeah, yep. And
okay.
so I came to Minneapolis when I was about 5 years old from Chicago. So I'm a South Minneapolis girl at heart. I grew up on Lake Street, and for me, that is a place of memory, culture, survival, beauty, all wrapped in one. And I remember as a kid, I used to walk with my mom and yell Lake Street, like it was a parade. It was a vibrant strip, with multi cultures and ethnicities. It's very much alive. But it's also where I noticed the cracks, boarded windows, the over policing, the way communities can be loved and neglected at the same time. So that tension raised me.
Well, I can relate to that. No, I grew up South Side Minneapolis, right there on 38th Street and 4th Avenue South back in the day. And so, yeah, and so in my generation, I can see how much South Minneapolis, the area, has changed over the years. So I can appreciate what you see as well. Now, who were the people that inspired you as a poet and as a performing artist? Who were your
Um,
role models?
Yes. So I would say, I think that's such a beautiful question because I feel like I come from a long line of, truth tellers, but I'm deeply inspired by, of course, the Maya Angelou's, the R&B music, Andre Lorde, June Jordan, Black women who wrote like their lives depended on it. I think, especially studying Maya and June Jordan, they taught me that poetry isn't decoration, it's survival, it's protest, and it's prayer. It also kind of shaped my spoken word world. Artists like Saul Williams and Andrea Gibson, who unfortunately just passed away last year, Ebony Stewart, poets who know how to turn pain into something that the body can feel. And honestly, my community inspires me too. My mother, the women who raised me, the people on Lake Street and here in South Minneapolis, the kids that I teach, they remind me that every voice holds a story that's worth telling. So when I write, I'm really not just writing for myself. I'm writing with my ancestors and for the people who are just now finding their voice.
Indeed, and indeed, that is so true. One thing I talk about on the show is the fact that if we don't share our stories, someone else will, and it won't be accurate. What does that
Mhm.
mean to you?
Oh yeah, I definitely relate to that. One of my quotes that I like to also bring up is Zora Neale Hurston, and she says, "What? How does it go? If you are silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it.
Mm,
Silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it." And that reminds me of kind of what your quote is. So I think we don't always share our stories first. Sometimes we recognize ourselves in someone else's courage. And I've been inspired by, people who take risks to speak, who told the truth even when it made people uncomfortable. So watching someone else be brave on a page or on the mic gave me permission to say, oh, maybe I can tell my story too. And so I definitely like that quote from Zora Neale Hurston because it's so true. If we don't tell our story, someone's going to tell it inaccurately for us and then therefore kill us, right? Metaphorically speaking.
indeed. So, with that being said, what does the title Before I Lie mean to you? And what truths were you ready to speak about in your book?
Yeah. So before I lie is a promise I made to myself. It's the moment right before we shrink. So right before we perform, right before we betray our own truth to make other people feel comfortable. So there's a spiritual meaning for it too. It's like a prayer, a check in my soul. I'm asking, am I being honest with myself and with God and with the world? So this book is a mosaic of poems, affirmations, big bold art illustrations, short stories that bear witness to the scars we inherit as healing. And so I wrote from a place of urgency. I was tired of code switching, tired of carrying silence that was never mine. So the truth that I was ready to speak were about my body, my faith, my family wounds, my blackness, and just my overall survival. And so, and then not only just that, but my joy as well. And so, at its core, Before I Lie is about rising from silence and finally claiming your voice.
Indeed, indeed. And speaking that authentic truth is just crucial, even now more than ever, with
Yes.
the lot of the efforts that want to silence that truth. So, what was the inspiration or for you to start to put together Before I Lie? Going back to, what were the you know catalysts or elements or history that inspired you to write Before I Lie?
Yeah, and I think that kind of shaped my overall history as a writer. The reason why I came into poetry was because I was raised in a household where domestic violence was prevalent, and I would write my way out of that household, out of that dysfunction. And so for me, I've always wanted to be an author and a writer just because of that, to share my story. So I think it was a place of deep reflection, asking, what have I been carrying that was never mine? What stories have I been editing in my head for others people's comfort? And as I realized that a lot of my healing wasn't going to happen in silence, I needed language, I needed breath for it. And so this book became a place where all my pieces could sit at the same table, the poems, the affirmations, the stories, the artwork, because that's how healing looks in real life. It's layered, it's not linear. And so that's why the book comes in so many different formats and has so many different poems that are very much different from one another. I wanted to create something that felt like a spiritual conversation and not just with the reader, but with myself. And like, before I lie to the world, let me tell the truth to my own heart first.
Yeah, that was one of the quotes when I reviewed your work. It said that was something that stood out for me. So, no, my next question would be, now, how does your work as a social worker shape you as a writer and a poet?
Ooh, ooh, that's a really great question. I love that question. Um, I don't separate the two. So what I write about in my poems, more than likely, I'm already living it or already somehow teaching it in my day-to-day profession. So I think my work as a social worker taught me how to listen, not just to words, but what's underneath them. I sit with people in their most tender moments, right? As a social worker, I'm there in their grief, in their fear, in their resilience. And you realize very quickly, everyone is carrying something. Especially being a social worker, you're right there up front, and you're, looking for housing for folks. So we're all carrying something that is silent, whether it be homelessness, whether it be a heartbreak. And so that shaped my writing to be more compassionate, more honest, and more careful with people's stories, including my own. It reminds me that healing isn't poetic, it's messy, it's non-linear, it's brave. And I remember in your review, WD, you go, this is a very personal book. And it's like, yeah, I'm being brave and having courage to speak these personal truths, right? And so when I write, I'm not just writing about people, I'm writing with them in mind. So meaning, what lesson can they take from this? Okay, you heard about my heartbreak, but here's some advice that you can also take to go with it. Yeah, I think because at the end of the day, both are the same thing, helping people feel seen, safe, and less alone.
Indeed. Now, earlier you touched on the fact that, yes, growing up in South Minneapolis and stuff, as you were growing up, you also saw the cracks and stuff. And in your work, you don't whitewash that at all. It's honest and it's raw and it's still speaking truth. So, so what, let's say, explore a little bit more of those cracks that you observed as you were growing up. Because
Yeah.
Minneapolis is seen as one way, but it's not.
Mm. Right. And as soon as you said that, one of the first things that came to mind was Minnesota nice. And I think just where our current environment, I think world about perspective of what Minnesota nice is. But to another point, but yeah, so I try not to romanticize where I'm from. The cracks are real. There is over policing. There is displacement. There's gentrification, generational poverty, schools without resources. There's families surviving the system. Hiawatha encampment, the homelessness shelter there. So, I mean, there's cracks, but there's also joy too. It's watching culture be celebrated, but communities be ignored. Right. So like when you think about Lake Street, you think about, oh, the food, the smells, the sounds that are coming from that street. So its culture is being celebrated, but the community itself is being ignored. Right. We don't have any affordable housing in this area. It's really hard to live in South Minneapolis. And so for me, it's like, as I explore telling the truth without shame, but without softness either. So I don't write to make people feel comfortable. I write to make people be honest about what's happening with their environment around them, especially now in today's world. And, when you have all this misinformation on the internet and you have AI and videos, it's so crucial to be human in this day and age and I think the best way that someone can be human in this day and age is to be completely honest and raw in their emotions and storytelling, because AI can't do that. Right. And so,
Right.
yeah. And so I think because when we name what's broken, we also make room for what can change. And I hold the beauty and pain all together. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes a difference because as the way that you talk about Lake Street, that's how I talk about 38th Street. Yeah, for
Yep.
me, yeah, yeah, I'm a baby boomer, so yeah, and I own it. So yeah, I get that. So now we're going to come to a spot here, so our viewers can hear some of your work.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll share my poem Where I'm From, Ode to the Hood, since we're talking about Lake Street and what
Right.
environment means to us. This poem recently just won a slam and it's about 3 minutes long. So here we go.
Go ahead.
I'm from elementary and high school dropouts, from playgrounds with torn basketball hoops and stolen dreams. I'm from bus stops and long ass walks, from Arnold's gun store, Robert's shoes, the liquor store, 7 Mile, $5 boutiques, George Floyd Square, and the corner of Chicago and Lake Street. I'm from the intersections where bullets and color wars meet, from stolen halos and streetlights that don't blink, prayers left on voicemail. I'm from women who wear gold on every finger, poppies rocking rope chains with the Jesus piece, and uncles with bank rolls thick as loyalty. I'm from the Holy Ghost and church. I'm from, but did you still off on her first? From absent birthdays, deadbeat father, strong mother, and a home where dysfunction is just background noise. Sirens and helicopters sound like a vacation. Where I'm from, the school's pipeline to prison isn't a stretch, it's a bus stop. I'm from IEP plans, redlining, yellow tape, Social Security, and Section 8. I'm from hopping gates, cops call, thin walls, pit bulls snarl with silver chains round their napes. I'm from cold cases and superheroes who don't wear capes. From chip polish and cheap paint left molding into slumlords. From evictions and pawning family heirlooms handed down at birth. I'm from a generational curse and witches who survived the spell of poverty. I'm from barehanded healers, seers, medicine women who cut the life from your body without surgery. I'm from the streets that gave my TT HIV. May she rest in peace. I'm from the bullet in my daddy's knee, the deep scar on my mother's cheek. I'm from collect calls and bail money, halfway houses, screen door, chain guards, steel with brass finish. Who that be? I'm from niggas in ski masks, wearing death like fashion. I'm from tattooed portraits and men and women easily fractured by bad habits. I'm from the war on drugs, Freedom Riders, Little Rock 9. I'm from Black women 3 times more likely to die on hospital beds bringing life. I'm from the transatlantic slave, Mississippi muddy boots of trade, from the great migration, tobacco farms and plantations. The fabric of my history burns with wildfires of colonization. I'm from gentrification, where cities are built on one side of the street. I'm from couches wrapped in plastic, Sunday cleanups, lavender incense burning, Keith Sweat, Mary J, and Neo Soul on the stereo. I'm from all those stereotypes. I'm from mud and sand. I'm from my mother's prayers and clasped hands. I'm from prophecy, survival, from faith. Grew up hearing mama say, good things come to those who wait. I'm from her breath when she professed, it ends with me. I am the rose that blossomed, the one that shouldn't have bloomed, from concrete.
Yeah. Is a poetry slam?
Yeah, that's proper etiquette to snaps.
When did you first go into being the spoken word as a performing artist? Because I love the way you share.
Could you repeat that question one more time, WD, please?
When did you go into doing a stand-up spoken word for your poetry?
So I've always, so in middle school is when I started performing, so 6th grade. And I've always, I think it's because one of my inspirations I was talking about earlier was Saul Williams. And the first time I heard a poem that really resonated with me was Saul Williams called Black Stacy. And he was talking about what it means to be a Black man growing up. And he was like kind of singing and rapping and talking. And I was like, wow, like I didn't know you can do all that in one piece. And so because watching him, I just started writing all of my poems to be spoken. So for me, it started in middle school. I was writing quietly for a long time, in journals, in diaries, poems, things I never thought anyone would hear. But again, one day after seeing that Saul Williams video, I was like, something shifted. I felt my body wake up. I felt my voice finally land. And that moment taught me that my words weren't meant to stay in a notebook. They were meant to be heard.
Yeah, which brings me to my next question. So, how does performing your work shape the way readers experience it on the page? And is there a difference between hearing the poem and reading it?
Oh, yes, yes. And kind of to speak to the point earlier, where when you hear it, you can feel it in the body. So yeah, there's a big difference. On the page, you meet the poem, but in performance, you feel it. So when I perform, you hear the pauses, the breath, the emotion behind the words. You kind of hear me go up and down, great migration, tobacco farms and plantations, right? So like that comes off completely different from reading it. And I feel like again, when you hear it, you can feel the emotion then. So some poems don't fully wake up until they're spoken. And I always say the page is the blueprint, but the performance is the heartbeat. So people might read a poem and understand it, but when they hear it, they remember it. And that's where the connection lives.
Well, that's what I appreciate about it when you shared your work at the expo back in December, because especially as a poet, yeah, I've written a few and I realized, but nobody can get getting it, share the essence of the poem like the poet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and that definitely makes it come alive. Uh, oh, now speaking of which, tell us more about Larkins Consulting.
Yes. Thank you for asking that question. Really excited to talk about this. So Larkin Consulting is a new my company that I just launched. It's a bridge between healing and language. So between community and creativity, between people and who feel unseen and the power in their power in their own voice. So through Larkins Consulting, I lead workshops, residencies, and creative healing spaces for youth, adults, and organizations. Anywhere people need room to tell their truth. It's where my life as a poet, social worker, and teaching artist kind of meet in one intersection. And I use writing, performance, and reflections as tools for confidence, expression, and connection. And it's just the beginning. So I'm building something rooted in legacy, access, and Black storytelling across Minnesota. So I won't get too much into that initiative, but it's really something that I'm excited to introduce to the world under Larkins Consulting.
Great. And how can our viewers connect?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on my website, which is dralandrawrites.com. So DRALANDRA Writes, WRITES.com. And you can find all of my events there, updates about this nationwide or this statewide initiative that I'm launching. So, yeah.
Great to hear. Now, here's my next question would come to, I have another quote that's, that definitely resonates with me. And it was an African proverb that says, until the lion shares his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.
The tail of the hunt will always what?
Glorify the hunter.
Hmm. Okay.
What does that say to you?
Hmm. If I can just think on this one a minute. Until the lion shares his side of the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunters.
Yeah, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter.
So the first thing that comes to mind is I think that quote reminds us that history is not neutral. So much of what we call truth has been written by the ones in power, as you spoke in your initial quote. And when only one side is speaking, the story is incomplete, right? So we don't get to hear the sides of the villain and the heroes. And sometimes often it's just the villain's side. So I think it tells us that voices matter, that who gets to speak shapes what we believe, and I think that's why storytelling itself is sacred. When I think about African storytelling, the griots of the world, right? Which is Griot Arts is in Rochester bookstore. Anyway, so I think my work is about giving language back to the people who were told to stay silent and letting the lion speak.
Yeah, that makes the difference. Um, One of those things that always resonates with me is when, now I'm a baby boomer, is when I now see children's books, because when I was growing up, children's books for BIPOC children were absent.
Mm.
And so I would ask you, um, how would part of your poetry speak to the children that are out here now? Because I said one of the things that a lot of black children said one of the reasons that they weren't doing so well in reading was saying there are no characters who look like me.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so could you explore that?
Yes, representation matters, right? And I think that's so powerful that when they say, none of them look like me, because visibility changes everything. When I write, I always imagine my younger self listening, and I actually have a poem in the book called "Notes to My Younger Self." The girl who didn't always feel safe, seen, or understood. And I think my poetry tells young people that you are not broken, you are becoming. One of the things that our young people struggle with, and me being still young myself, is that we often are like, we have to have everything done right now. Like, I have to have the success right now. I have to look a certain way right now. And it's like, be patient with yourself. You're not broken. You are still becoming, right? You're still growing. You're still getting into your features. You're still, you have internships. You still have people to meet that are going to love you that you haven't met yet. And so I think it's really important to reinforce to youth that becoming piece and to honor the becoming piece, right? The journey it takes to become who you are. And I think that part is often just so misunderstood and not talked about enough with youth. So I think it reminds me that, their voices matter, even if no one has asked for it yet. Because again, remember, they're still becoming. So even though they're like, I feel unseen, no one hears me. No one has asked for it yet. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Just pause for a second. And I think to show them that their pain doesn't disqualify them, and their dreams don't have to wait for permission. For some reason, when I was writing this, like before I wrote this book, I had this idea in my head that I had to be 40 years old to write a book. I'm not, and writing a book has always been on my vision board. I'm not sure why I thought I had to be a certain age or reach a certain level in society to write a book. Right. And so that's me kind of demystifying those stereotypes around what it means to write a book or what an author looks like. And so this is what this book's about. And for me, that's why I self-published as well, to give myself that empowerment. Like, you don't need permission to start believing.
And I agree with you on that. So, so for you and for me, what is the importance of us as independent authors?
Can you repeat that question?
Okay, so in turn, because what I have observed over time is there's traditional publishing, and then there's independent publishers. The majority of independent publishers, the majority of African Americans are independent publishers. So, okay, so explore the importance of this particular network.
Yes. And that's something that I've also noticed too, WD, and kind of learning about the publishing world, that a lot of BIPOC folks are self-published, and then the traditional routes are really heavily based on folks who are not BIPOC. I think independent authorship is freedom. It means we don't have to wait for permission to tell our stories. For a long time, I think Black voices were filtered, softened, or rejected because they didn't fit the industry. They didn't fit what the industry wanted to sell, which is why I say my book I think is a prime example of that, where I felt like if I was going to reach out to traditional publishers, they were instantly going to reject me. Who's this? I mean, why? And so, but when you're independent, you own your voice, you own your truth, and you own your timeline. It allows you to write for our communities and not for the gatekeepers. And I think in a world where so much of our history has been erased already, right, or rewritten, being able to publish ourselves is an act of resistance. It's saying, forget your traditional route and what you expect me to do. I'm going to do it my way and my ancestors' way. And that's so powerful. That's so empowering and powerful. And I think independent Black authors aren't just writing books. We're reclaiming narrative, legacy, and power.
Yes, yes, indeed. And say, yes, we are sharing the story. We are the narrative. And in that narrative is our authentic truth.
Hmm.
Now, that being said, I'm ready for another one of your works.
Great, yes. So as we know, MLK birthday had just passed, and we just had MLK Day, January 19th. And so I'm going to read a poem called I'm Black, which talks about Black history, Black culture. And this is another one of my award-winning poems. And here it is.
Yes.
I'm Black, blacker than you can understand. I come from goddesses who wore their essence in the palms of their hands, always uplifting sisters like no other can. I wear virtue, breathe life into my brothers like no other man, 'cause I am love and light. Come look into my sight and see my reflection. My brown skinned mother gave birth to me so I could give birth to a new generation of African queens who create inspiration. I don't embrace hatred. I got sister blood and soul all over my shoelaces. Tie those together, it's in my genes, in my nature. Right, right. I'm Black like West African women with thick hips and full lips, like single mothers with tight fists, like fried eggs and cornbread, jollof rice, jerk chicken, fish chips, and grits. 'Cause this is soul food, child. You know, soul food. I'm Black like coffee with no cream. Black like silent screams, Dr. King's I have a dream, let freedom ring. I'm just Black. I'm Black enough to fight for civil rights, Black enough to reflect the light, Black enough to broadcast my pride like Sojourner Truth. Ain't I a woman? Black enough so that when these words touch, they leave fingerprints on your very soul. So, how Black? Black enough so that when these words touch, they leave fingerprints on your very soul. I'm Black from within, from ancestors who unlocked the mystery between Genesis and Revelations. Black enough to stick up like a sore thumb and represent a new nation. Black enough to spot and think before I speak. Black enough to absorb more than just heat. See, this is knowledge, and I and wisdom understand me, see. I'm a proud African American, richness in my melanin, mocha skin, kings for men. You know it's legit because fight the power runs through the blood of my heritage. Mixed with a little bit of civil rights, Asada Shakur, single Black mothers and a struggle, hip hop, Tupac, Jay-Z, it's a hard knock, Motown, James Brown, James Baldwin, Huey, Colin Kaepernick, Ruby, Trayvon Martin, Harriet, Ketanji Brown, Bell Hooks, Emmett Till, Rena Moran, Sandra Bland, and Malcolm X, who be the keeper to my brother man. When I give birth to another soul, I was so lovingly, so proudly, unapologetically say, baby, you're Black, blacker than you'll ever understand. Thank you.
Yes, yes, and yes. We are Black. We are descended from kings and queens.
Yes, indeed. Indeed,
Indeed.
we are.
So one thing I know growing up, that the fact is that, hey, Black women have been intertwined in every movement of social change in this country and in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So, and hey, without Black women, well, Black women, I don't know where we would be.
Mm.
So, in this legacy, where do you see yourself in terms of your voice to the Black girls there, who are children? Black little girls are there who are watching you.
Oh,
Where do you
yes.
see your voice?
Yes. I love this question. A lot of work, but my work is rooted to that audience, to Black girls. So I see myself as a bridge. I stand in the space between what was survived and what's still possible. Black women have always been the backbone of movements. As you mentioned, we are the cornerstone in every movement and change. There's a Black woman there. So they're the backbone of movements. And even when our names were left out of the footnotes, we still showed up. So my voice is about reminding Black girls that they don't have to disappear to be powerful. That sometimes softness is not weakness, that their stories are sacred, that their truth is worth protecting. And if they see me choosing my voice, choosing my healing, and just choosing myself, maybe they'll know that they can do it too. And I think that's the legacy for me. It's not profession, but it's just permission for Black girls to do this and not be silenced or judged for it.
Indeed, indeed. And that being said, oh, when we think about schools right now, what do you see as things that schools need to do that they're not doing now?
Ooh. That they're not doing now. Well, so one thing, so I have a friend who's a beauty stylist, and right now they're just now implementing hair and Afro kinky and hair courses into the high school. So it's not an actual course like in the day programming, but it's an after school program. And I told my friend, I was like, wow, if I would have had something like that in high school, I think I would have loved that. But we didn't have it. We didn't have anything about learning about our hair textures or learning how to braid as an after school program. So I think schools need to make room for the whole child and not just the test score, right? So when we think about schools, it's just the academics, the test scores. We got to get you to college, you got to get that, get on the honors to get that scholarship. But what about the whole person? Like, we don't even talk about financial literacy in schools, right? Like, what does it mean to pay rent? How do I budget for that? So even things like that. So I think many young people are carrying trauma, anxiety, grief, and we're asking them to perform like none of that exists. If I'm dealing with trauma and anxiety, I'm not going to score well on that test score. I don't care how much I studied the night before. So I think the schools need to make room for the whole child. Let's start implementing some real life courses, some of the yoga. I know that now schools are even implementing yoga classes into the school, which is great. So stuff like that. I think not every child needs to be fixed. Some just needs to be listened to. And when students feel seen, learning becomes possible again. Education should be a place of healing and not just evaluation. Because if you think about it too, some kids are coming from homes that are traumatic. So school is literally their healing place for food, to be seen and to be heard by a teacher. And because of that, we need to implement all those aspects for a child.
Yes, indeed. Yes, we do. I remember something else that when we were at the expo, and it was something that triggered something in my memory, and I think, and it's also in your book. God doesn't make mistakes. Can you explore that?
Yes. And that's actually one of the poems I'm going to ended up ending off with, called A Letter to Love Yourself. But yeah, so I grew up in a church, Baptist, and I'm also, spiritual. And then my parents, or my grandmother and mother, are first and second generation psychic mediums. So I come from a lot of spirituality and religious in my poetry. I think for me, that means that we were never accidents, even in our pain. So often we grow up thinking something is wrong with us because of what we've been through. But I believe every part of us was created with intention, even the parts of us that we're still trying to love and understand. So when I say God doesn't make mistakes, I'm saying you are not a flaw. Your scars are not a shame. Your voice is not an error. It's a reminder that, we're here with purpose, even when the journey feels heavy. And what I often like to tell people who struggle with self-confidence and self-image, like myself at times, God is the same person that created the stars, same person, it's the same thing, right? This big figure, this wonder, is the same that created, again, stars, cosmos, or the internet, heck, right? This thing that is God is an artist. So if God can make these beautiful things, I mean, imagine that he created you with the same intention, that he made with the 3,000 stars in the sky, right? And I just thinking of it from that perspective is so beautiful. Like this grand artist also made me, and every spot that's on me was not a mistake. Because if this person made the sky, then I'm pretty sure when it got to me, they knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah, because yep, God doesn't make mistakes. You know, now we just talked about the fact that oftentimes there are kids coming to school and they've been suffering with different types of trauma in their lives. Um, it- and some of them, whether they're young or whether they're teenagers in that critical stage or as young adults. Um, what are you consider the big, no, since it all happens in layers, the steps uh, that we as adults can do for our children in those steps towards healing, as mentors, as those folks that used to be in the neighborhood, be watching out for everybody's children, that sort of thing
Ooh,
towards
there's some good.
healing.
Yes. Thank you for that question. That's really great. And I love that you asked that. I think the first step is to listen without trying to fix. Me being myself, who's in my 20s, I'm still asking advice from my mom, and the first thing she would do is try to fix, right? And it's like right now, I don't want you to tell me what to do. I just need you to listen and just go, and then agree with me, and go, oh yeah, that was wrong. So I think before we start giving young folks advice, just let them know, hey, I'm your big sis, I'm your big bro, I'm just here listening to you, and I'm just going to agree with you. So then that way people feel understood and seen first. And I think that's why a lot of people don't go to therapists or, social workers, because they're going to try to fix you. Here's some medication to fix that. Here's some advice. I'm coming just to be heard right now. So that would be my first step, is to listen to young folks. So many young people don't need advice right away anyway, right? It's their journey and they're going to learn on their path, right? The universe has a interesting way of making us learn the lesson regardless if we get advice or not. So know that they're going to get it. And some folks, it takes longer than usual. I'm one of those folks, a little hard-headed and stubborn, but the universe is going to be sure to make that person gets it. So your job is to listen, to affirm, and to validate, to build confidence in them. And I think third, create spaces where they can express themselves through art, writing, music, movement. Maybe you tell them, go out to an open mic, or, what I always tell people. So I work with young people and they always say, like, how can I heal myself? And as adults, we know that you can't just heal yourself. It's a constant conversation. But for them, I like to give them an answer. And what I always say is, think about something that you really liked when you were younger. Go back to that and just dive deep in it as an adult. I promise you, you're going to be healed. You're going to be healed, right? And so oftentimes, like when I grew back when I was younger, it was writing. And so when I was in high school and college, I didn't write at all. I was just focused on studying, getting that degree. After college and COVID-19, I was so depressed and got back to what I loved. I was like, one night I was like, you know what? I'm depressed. Let me just write. And I started writing. And the next thing you know, I came out with Before I Lie. So literally your gift, what you love to do, will help you heal in some ways. So that'll be the third thing. And then lastly, remind them that their past does not define their future. Again, with so many times right here in the moment, we're like, things ain't going right. It's always going to be like this. I'm always going to be in this season. No, you're not. You still have life to do. There's still 6 months ahead of you, right? So remind people that, hey, right now the season sucks, but you still have life to live. You're just this age and it's just March. Let's keep going.
That's so true. In fact, my son's 25, and one of the things I learned was, to just listen. And I also not only to listen, but give advice when he asks for it. Because there's that thing about unsolicited advice. Okay, step back. If he wants it, okay, then I will give it. Because now,
Yes.
as one adult to another. And now our viewers are ready for your next work.
Yes. So I'll share, before I get to the letter to love yourself, because that's the one that I end off with as a message. I'm going to share Kitchen Psalms just because we talked about advice for Black girls and what it means for young folks.
Yeah.
So Kitchen Psalms, just to give context, Kitchen Psalms in my culture, in African American communities and culture, We refer to the kitchen as our back neck, the neck of our nape. So when you hear
Mhm.
kitchen in this piece, I'm talking about my neck back here where my hairs are. Being Black and beautiful always felt like it came with a warning label. Handle with grease, handle with patience, handle with care, and handle with love. I knew I was different when my mama either pulled out the rat tail comb or the hot comb like it was a weapon, a blade passed down through generations. She'd go straight for the kitchen, naps sizzling like bacon at the back of my head, blue magic melting, frying my scalp raw, heated tears baked behind my lashes. Stop, Ma! That hurt. Girl, hush. Beauty is pain. Now let me cook and get this kitchen under control. That was a Black girl's baptism, a hot comb on a Sunday. She started parting down my scalp like Moses split the Red Seas, taking the same path our ancestors carved through chains, auction blocks, and fuels hot enough to cook a soul and fry a spirit. She yanked at the roots. Each tug yanked out the lies the West sold us. That beautiful meant light, straight, easy. Meanwhile, my hair fought back, kinked, coiled, edges rebelling, crying out for freedom. I sat between her knees on a worn pillow, head bowed like I was taking communion, wondering, why did God crown me with struggle? Why couldn't my strands waterfall like others did on shampoo commercials? Why bury my beauty in knots and naps? Why did mine need smoke, oil, and hustle to survive? Why did my beauty have to fight? Why did my hair need so much taming? And why couldn't I just mold into belonging? You a beautiful Black queen, baby, my mama said, brushing scripture straight into my tender scalp. She tightened her grip like she was braiding up hope for my future. Yeah, God made me, wonderfully made them stop and stare, made them handle me with righteous hands, as if the angels handed me over personally, like an offering. Thank you.
Mhm. It's interesting when you shared that particular poem because my mother would have all these girls and women in her kitchen doing a press and curl. So yes, that smell of bergamot, Dixie Peach, Posner's, and the pressing oil was
Mhm.
in our kitchen. My mom was doing all these women's hair. So yes, I know all about kitchens.
Yes, I love it.
Oh yeah, I mean that brings back so many memories.
I love it.
Yeah, and see, and we were forbidden to come into the kitchen until she was done with her customers.
Yep. Sounds like you know the culture in the kitchen. Yep, that's exactly.
Oh, know it all too well because I remember I've had so many people come to me and said, "I remember I was one of your mama's customers and stuff. I remember the days."
I love it.
Oh, so thank you for sharing that.
Oh.
So now, what's next for you in terms of Before I Lie and the work you're building through Larkins Consulting?
Yeah. So in terms of Before I Lie, I have a reading at Majors and Quinn January 28th with Minnesota Book Award finalist Ben Westall, Rosetta Peters, and Sagira Shashid, who are all poets and authors here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So that's going to be January 27th at 7 p.m. And then as far as Larkins Consulting, again, just speaking very briefly on the initiative that I'm working on. I'm expanding those spaces, bridging, poetry, healing, and storytelling in schools, libraries, and communities across Minnesota. But again, I'm building something a bit bigger, something that celebrates Black voices and creates long-term assets for authors and creatives in Minnesota. So please, visit my website, my social media on Facebook, Dralandra Larkins, to get updates about that.
Great. Okay. Now, for the readers who are wondering, say they're going to ask, why should we read Before I Lie?
Yes. So you can get Before I Lie one on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and then also they're at bookstores here in Minnesota at Next Chapter Booksellers in St. Paul, and then it's also at Griot Arts Bookstore in Rochester, Minnesota. But the reason why read this book is because it's for anyone who's ever felt unseen or tired of pretending they're okay. I wrote these poems from an intersection, I always say, from an intersection of pain and purpose. So I want readers to feel both held and stirred, to know that even the softest voices carries power, and even broken stories can still breathe. This book is a mirror and a hand reaching back. At its core, Before I Lie is a reckoning, a love letter, and a resurrection. It reminds us that survival is sacred, storytelling is resistance, and that healing, no matter how messy it is absolutely necessary.
Indeed. So I think you probably heard this from probably our elders that without a test, there is no testimony.
Right. Yep.
Most definitely. So since your work encompasses all of the above, not just the trauma and the issues in the country, but also the hope. Okay, now explore the hope portion of your book.
Yes. And I'm actually going to end with a poem too, if that's okay. Exploring that topic.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So I'm going to read this poem called "A Letter to Love Yourself," and this is kind of touches on that, that the hope piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll explain a little bit more to it afterwards. But A letter to love yourself. Love yourself. Do not believe society's standard of beauty, because truly you are a masterpiece created by the master God. You are beautiful. Your skin and bone, human, you are not made of metaphors, but your strength is fire. It's never ending. It doesn't burn out. Never relinquish your superpowers. You're the queen and the king of your tower. Breathe. So you found the strength to keep going. So hold on just a little longer. What doesn't kill you makes you a conqueror. You've got to be brave. David, conquer your Goliath and slay. Just love yourself. And nah, I'm not talking about getting a new pair of shoes and buying a fresh paper cut or your brows on fleek, edges sleek, so you shared a tweet and now you're feeling yourself. I'm talking about healing yourself from the root of your core. Because if you want to acknowledge who you truly are, then what is your purpose for? So it's a society that made you feel like you're Black is not a boastful believer. And it's a society that made you feel unsatisfied with the skin you're in. Fall in love with your imperfections. Skin, smile, face, collarbones. You are a blessing, and don't second guess this, because I absolutely and definitely, wholeheartedly love me unconditionally. Do not believe society's standard of beauty, because truly you are a masterpiece. And so that's A Letter to Love Yourself. It's an affirmation poem. And so to answer the question, I think hope comes from choosing to stay open, even when life has tried to close you. My work doesn't deny the pain. It walks through it and still chooses light. I write from the belief that healing is possible. It's not perfect. It's not quick, but it's real, and you can do it. And I think every poem is a reminder to myself and to others that, you're still becoming, your story is not over. And so the hope in my work is really an act of faith, that even after everything, as Maya would say, we can still rise.
Still I rise. Still I rise. So, which brings me to a question I asked to all of my guests, and it piggybacks on the poem that you wrote, that you just shared. What advice would you give to your 13-year-old self from where you are now?
Ooh. Oh, that's good. And I actually have a poem, a letter to, or a note to my younger self in the book.
Oh.
Yes, but I would tell her, you don't have to rush your becoming. I would tell her that, your softness is strength. And even when the world tries to harden you, I would also tell her that one day, the things that make you feel different will become the very things that make you feel powerful. So give yourself grace, give yourself time. And I'll also tell her to keep writing, even when no one is listening yet, because one day your voice will help someone feel less alone. So.
Okay. Would you share that poem with us?
Nah, that one's a little bit. It's more for it's not for performance.
Oh, okay. No problem. No problem there. So, that being said, now, still, okay, since we're starting to wind down, again, where can people purchase your works?
Yes. So here in Minnesota, people can purchase at Next Chapter Booksellers, which is a
Hmm.
bookstore in St. Paul.
Hmm.
There's also at a bookstore in Rochester, Minnesota, at Griot Arts. It is also at the American Storytelling Center, downtown Minneapolis. There's copies there. And then if people aren't in Minnesota and want to purchase online, they could purchase through bookbaby.com on and just type in Before I Lie in their search. It's also on Barnes and Noble website. Just put in their search Before I Lie. And then it's also on Amazon. So a couple different places online that you can find it. And then again, its copies are here at bookstores in Minnesota. And then y'all can get one from your girl. You can buy directly from me.
Yeah.
Just send me an email.
Great. So literally speaking, what's next for you so far as your work?
What's next for me as far as what?
What's next for you so far as another collection or another book? What's on the burners?
Yeah. So yes, I am working on another writing project. It's interesting because this one isn't going to be a poetry book. I'm working on something very close to my spirit. So it's a book that blends real life moments, photography, and oracle style reflections. So again, I come from a generation of psychic mediums. So tarot and oracle and spirituality is a part of who I am. So over the years, I've been collecting these heart-shaped signs, little reminders from the universe. And moments like that whisper sayings like, you're not alone. So each page will pair one of those moments with a reflection, like a message for the day. And so that'll be something for folks, who need advice and like who need practical advice. Like, give me something to do. So then the book will come with some oracle cards. You pull a card, and it'll be a reflection for you.
Oh, wonderful. Most wonderful. Okay, so like I said, we're coming to the close here. So, closing remarks.
No, I just want to say thank you so much, WD. You are absolutely amazing. I am blessed to have, to sit in this interview with you. Also want to thank Al McFarlane, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, for giving me the opportunity in the space, a whole hour to talk about Before I Lie. I'm so grateful for this. So thank you to the team and to you, WD, most especially.
Thank you. Oh, thank you to say I have enjoyed having you on Conversation on McFarlane, and you have been most inspiring by sharing your story when it comes to healing, spirituality, and they say loving ourselves, and of course, and memories about Minneapolis. Yeah, that kitchen part. Yeah, you got me there. Hey, this is W.D. Foster Graham, host for Book Chat Thursday with our guest, Dralandra Larkins. So it's a thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next go round.